الله أكبر
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Four of the leaders of Quraysh, Al-Walid ibn Utbah, Umayy ibn Khalaf, Al-As ibn Wa'il, and Al-Aswad ibn al-Muttalib. They visit with the Prophet ﷺ, trying to negotiate with him. And they tell him, Ya Muhammad, we know that you are bringing forth the Tawheed, believing in the one God. And we are doing the same thing. You claim to follow Ibrahim alayhi salam. We are following Ibrahim, the same thing. So why don't you worship our way 1 year? We'll worship your way 1 year. This way, if we were right, you won't be harmed because you did it our way. And if you're right, we won't be harmed because we did it actually your way. And the Prophet ﷺ replied by saying, Ma'adallah, I will not do that. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed another great surah that starts also with قُلْ.
قل يا أيها الكافرون لا أعبد ما تعبدون ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد ولا أنا عابد ما عبدتم ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد لكم دينكم ولي دين.
And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here by saying قُلْ, say, indicates that the answer to this request came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the answer is not up for negotiation, not even by the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, but the whole answer came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the whole thing was dealt. And if you think that the leaders of Quraysh, in a way, to their thinking and to somebody who's looking from a distance, is that they were giving in because they're agreeing to worship the way of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. However, the matters of religion, especially the rituals, are not up for negotiation. This is not a business deal where in a way you give and you take, but however the whole thing actually is clarified. And if you look at the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, that on other instances he did give in when it comes to the worldly things. Like for example, even when he was stronger than the situation. Here we're talking about the period of Mecca where he was oppressed, and yet he rejected this offer of worshipping their Lord one way. But you find down the road, for example, after the migration and the battle of Al-Khandaq, the Prophet ﷺ was willing to give in when he wanted to negotiate with Ghatafan. And even, of course, the bigger example, the Hudaybiyah Treaty, where the Prophet ﷺ was very strong, but anyway, he gave in because it's a matter of mutual benefit. That's why it is really clear to define actually what is being negotiated. When it comes to matters of general benefit, the Prophet ﷺ was willing to give in some and then to ask for some, as in the Hudaybiyah Treaty. When it comes to the da'wah, yes, you can use a gradual approach, like when the Prophet ﷺ sent Mu'adh ibn Jabal to Yemen, and he told him that you'll be meeting some of the people of the book. Let the first thing that you call them to is the belief in the one God. If they respond to that, then tell them about the 5 daily prayers. If they respond to that, tell them about the zakat, the siyam, and so on. But the important thing is that this is a da'wah matter. It's a call to somebody who is not a Muslim. But when it comes to the basics, whether it's a aqidah or whether it's a ibadat, then the answer is that there's no negotiation. Now this becomes really important, by the way, when we're dealing with people of different faith, that we do not have a congregational act of worship. We only worship the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated for us. And this was stated very clearly in that surah Al-Kafirun. And the same thing is repeated over and over in so many different ways, so as not to leave any room for interpretation or for leaving a room for a person actually to do it other way. لا أعبد ما تعبدون ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد ولا أنا عابد ما عبدتم ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد ولا أنا عابد ما عبدتم لكم دينكم ولي دين. I do not worship what you worship. You are not worshipping what I'm worshipping, because they claim that we are all worshipping the same thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا أَنْتُمْ عَابِدُونَ مَا أَعْبُدُ. You are not worshipping what I'm worshipping. Even if you claim the same thing, but you're worshipping something different. And the same thing is repeated over and over again to indicate clearly that this is the path of Islam. When it comes to the acts of worship, it is done only the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has legislated. When it comes to other things, then we can give in. Now, some people actually want to go to one extreme or the other. Either no negotiation whatsoever, and that's not what the Prophet ﷺ did. We mentioned the example of Al-Hudaybiyah and some other instances. Or you have the other extreme, where people want to give in on everything or negotiate on everything, which is not what the Prophet ﷺ did. And the proof is Surah Al-Kafirun. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, to give us the company of the Prophet ﷺ in the hereafter and the Sahaba alayhim wa sallam. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.